What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, well, they made an announcement today, and it was as big of an announcement as they could possibly make. As we went through the entire summer, most of the spring, and yeah, we're getting into fall and football season. We waited on one thing when it came to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that was who and when they would announce their starting quarterback. Well, that has come today, and we know who. It is Russell Wilson, a name that we expected, but I don't think changes too much right now. Still plenty of reactions, and to be honest, Mike Tomlin, well, he gave us more than I anticipated him giving us, and we're going to dive into that. Plus, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they nearly lost a massive piece to the offense, a very scary injury today at practice, but they seemingly avoid at least the initial stage of a massive blow. And the practice squad is filling out. We're going to dive into that and who the 15 of the 16 guys that I have down as returning or coming to Pittsburgh this season as members of the practice squad. Plus, as we do every single day, we will answer all of your questions. So toss them in the chat as we go through the show. Nick, it is about 7 million degrees outside. Russell Wilson came out to talk in his press conference wearing a sweatshirt. And afterwards, the first thing that came out of my mouth to him was, dude, how are you not sweating? And he just smiled and said, I'm good. I was like, I don't believe you, but okay. How you feel, my friend? And I hope you're staying cool.
Yeah, cool, calm, and collected. That's what the Steelers QB1 is all about. So he's obviously excited. I'm excited because of the big news today, and the big news being that the streaming site we're using has a dark mode. That's what I'm excited about, because as a man with glasses, that's huge. I'm not going to tell you what streaming site because no free ads, but you know, that makes me happy, and I'm just trying to avoid thinking about the heat, hence the reason I'm going in every other direction possible.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate that. The no free ads. Let me tell you, our non-ad ads they're catching some waves. I've had a comment or two over the last 24 hours or so that have made me laugh about how we are not the greatest, but also very good at giving free public advertising to companies maybe we don't want to. So it's a big day. I didn't expect today, to be honest. I thought Tuesday was when the Pittsburgh Steelers would make their quarterback decision. They waited, and instead they did it today. Mike Tomlin said that he spoke to both quarterbacks, informed both of them that Russell Wilson will be the starter and that Justin Fields will be the backup. I mean, we waited all summer for the answer that we knew we were going to get and that we did get. Russell Wilson is the guy. I don't think it changes anything for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, usually I start these conversations by asking, were you stunned? What were your thoughts? But I know your thoughts. You sat here all summer and knew exactly what was going to happen. So you rocked with Russell Wilson. And then the answer came that it was Russell Wilson, and nobody's thoughts should have changed. This is who the Pittsburgh Steelers have been. This is who they will continue to be. But Mike Tomlin did toss in a little nugget there, a little good nugget that I thought I wasn't going to get. We weren't going to get. No, it wasn't a response to Beanie Bishop. For those of you who watched the press conference, Mike Tomlin was asked about Beanie Bishop. He shut that one right down real quick. We're only talking about the cubes in this one. No Beanie Bishop. Justin Fields is his freak athleticism, as Mike Tomlin put it, is going to get him some packages. And he will be on the field most likely against Atlanta, at least to some degree. And as soon as he said it, my eyes got very big, and I went, oh, okay, that's huge. Because if you're going to acknowledge that, that means that, well, all our speculation is probably correct. Justin Fields is going to have a package. I think, equally as excited that the Pittsburgh Steelers finally announced their quarterback, that they are very open to Justin Fields belonging in this offense, because I mean, with every other position, it's simple. If you have too much, it's a good thing. And if you have too many good quarterbacks, it's a good thing. And it's even better when it's not a quarterback competition. It's not a situation where if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. We have a quarterback who could do things most other quarterbacks cannot do. And when we plug him in, chances are he's able to just add a different element to the game instead of just doing the same element, and we're switching it up between quarterbacks. You heard Justin Fields getting a little bit of some action against Atlanta. What were your thoughts on that one?
To me, that's huge, especially with what news came later in the day, because the news that we are going to talk about later in the day is all encompassing of that entire position group. Not to mention the fact that who knows if Russell Wilson is 100% back from that calf injury. I've
Yeah.
mentioned multiple times throughout this preseason that last year it took Joe Burrow a while to kind of get up to 100%, to look 100%. And Joe Burrow is a decade younger than Russell Wilson. So if he's dealing with a calf injury, of course, the severity depends and it changes based on that. But if he's not 100% ready to go with an offensive line that is a little banged up, it's going to be huge that they're able to bring in Justin Fields when needed and utilize his mobility to kind of fill the gaps where Russell Wilson can't, especially when you get down in the red zone and you want to run those read options that are potentially very dangerous and very potent for the Steelers.
Yeah, I agree. Like I look at it and it's a good time to acknowledge vibing with the dogs comment here. Justin is a free agent after the season, so he's not going to put himself in harm's way when he knows he'll get a gig elsewhere. He's got the best agent in football. If he's got all the talent, he'd be QB1. I don't think he was ready to be QB1. I think I agree with the Russell Wilson signing, and I think to a degree I was leaning Justin Fields for a moment, but overall, in the grand scheme of things, it just makes too much sense to stick with the guy who's reliable, and that guy is Russell Wilson. I mean, he turns the ball over pretty much less than anybody in the NFL. He's not going to lose you games. That's what the Pittsburgh Steelers were looking to do. They got exactly what they were looking for, and he's done this before. He's done this many times. I don't agree that Justin's not going to put himself in harm's way. I think Justin's going to put himself on the field every single opportunity he could possibly get to try and showcase that he is worth a starting job and that he could do things in the National Football League that nobody else can do. And I think that only benefits his chances next year in free agency to go out there and get a different gig and to get a starting quarterback or a starting job with another team. I think this is, I mean, almost the best of both worlds for the Steelers. You know, you have an opportunity to rely on a veteran that, I mean, I'm going to put my faith in Russ and say you could rely on a veteran that should be able to lead this team to places. I don't know where those places are. I think the offensive line decides a ton of that. I think the running game decides more than the quarterback, and I think the defense decides it all. But to put yourself in a position where your quarterback could help and contribute to that and keep yourself alive in situations when you just can't shoot yourself in the foot. And the Steelers, as much as they maybe have had that, they also haven't, because the one thing with Russ is chances are he's not going to go 3 and out every single series. He's going to throw some touchdown passes. He's going to have some success. I think he's as reliable as they come for the Steelers options in the past couple of years. And with Justin, it's just, hey, let's add some electricity. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, who cares? You know, that's the other part of this is if Justin gets on the field and the Steelers offense stinks whenever they put him in there and he can't run the football well and the read option isn't working and defenses know exactly what's coming, so they stop doing it, just stop using Justin Fields. You know, like it's not that hard to say. This isn't a starting quarterback situation where you got to bench the guy. You just don't put him out there anymore. You just don't go 2-quarterback system. I think it works. I know people will be skeptical, but I think leaving that door open and testing it out is the best situation, especially if you could do it in a manner that's not excessive. If you could just do it to where it works and it's a bit of a surprise and you don't see it coming and you use it to your advantage, I think that's when it works best. This can't be just like a hardcore part of the offense. Gigs never work like that. Never. They start off where they work fine, but they're not going to win you a Super Bowl. Your solid offense is going to win you a Super Bowl. I just think that of all the 2-quarterback situations, this might be the best one for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's not even a 2-quarterback situation when you think about it. It is a quarterback one and a wildcat running back that also just happens to have a really good arm and have played quarterback at the professional level. So that's what I see it as. I see this as the Steelers just basically having a set selection of plays where they can go in a different direction with their offense than the traditional sense. And I think any way you can throw off a defense, especially with a team that is going to need to be proficient at scoring in multiple different ways, they're not going to have one thing that they're going to be able to just rely on game in and game out. They're going to have to mix it up. They're going to have to show different looks. Adding this into the repertoire is always going to be a good thing in my eyes. But again, we'll have to wait and see what it actually looks like in week 1, how much they use it, to what degree they use it, and how they use it. So I think there's a lot of questions left to be answered, but on the base level, yeah, this is a no-brainer. You use the talent that you have on the roster, and Justin Fields just has too much talent to hold a clipboard for 17 games.
Exactly. And we'll continue because Vibe and we appreciate you. How if they are using him as a gimmick? He's not a gimmick. He's either good enough to start or he isn't. He showed he isn't. Just wait for an opportunity next year. I mean, everybody can have their opinion about Justin Fields and whether or not they think he's good enough or not. I have met very few NFL players. Very, very few. I'm not going to say none, but very few who. We're back. I don't know what just happened there. But
yeah, you glitched out a little bit there. You're back.
I freaked out. I saw it freak out. I've met very few, won't say none, but I have met very, very few NFL players who would not take an opportunity that's presented to them, that would not try to benefit the team, that would not try to take any playing time that they could possibly get. I understand that fans and agents and everybody else feel different ways. I'm just saying, and maybe I'm totally wrong on this. Maybe I'm totally wrong. This is just my opinion. But in my opinion, I have never, I could say that the few that I've met, I think people would know. And I won't toss that out there because I'm not looking to bash people. But Justin Fields is not in that category. And he's never struck me as a guy who is going to sit down and just say, no, I'm good, man. I just don't get that. I don't get that vibe from him. And again, everybody can have their opinion about him. I have a hard time believing that an NFL player, especially a quarterback, isn't going to put the team first and take any opportunity given to him to get on the field and showcase himself, even if that's as a quote unquote gimmick for the team. That's how I stand. All right. Let's talk about Isaac Seumalo. That's the other massive news here. Goes down with the pectoral injury today at practice, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. I'm not allowed to report things that I see at practice, so we're going to say according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. Goes down, according to Schefter, avoided a massive injury. Quote, avoided a bullet here. Missed a bullet, whatever he said, with Isaac. Doesn't appear to be season ending. They'll wait to find out just how long he's going to miss. I would imagine it's a couple of weeks. You know, TJ had the minor strain / tear, and he missed half the season. I would say Isaac's probably somewhere in that boat. This is huge news for the Steelers. It's not good. You know, you're now heading into the season. I don't think Mason McCormick's going to be the starter. I would imagine it's Spencer Anderson, but you're looking at it with 2 second-year guys, potentially 2 first-year guys. One of them just came back from injury. It's an offensive line that 3 months ago we were very excited about, and where we sit here right now should be very nervous about. Massive blow for the Steelers. Isaac goes down. Like I said, I anticipate him missing several weeks. We don't know that for sure. I'm just guessing here. Spencer Anderson's look good, and it's a good opportunity to see the future. But of all of your offensive linemen, Isaac Seumalo was the guy you didn't want to lose because he was the guy that held this. He was the glue. He was the glue to the offensive line. A massive loss for the Steelers. Absolutely massive if he is to miss a significant amount of time.
Especially when you consider what came before it, and that is the loss of Nate Herbig, who last year was that guy. He was the backup swing guard. He wasn't even thought of as a center. You lose your primary backup in the interior offensive line. Now you might lose one of your best starting offensive linemen. And, Spencer Anderson, credit to him. I mean, he has been whatever the Steelers have asked him to be, but he's still a prospect. And this is the time where you're going to need a lot of these guys to grow up a lot faster than you anticipated, because this is a team that is built to win with the big guys up front. They're built to win in the trenches. And right now the trenches are depleted. So it is obviously a very, very risky proposition walking into Atlanta with, as you mentioned, a bunch of guys that have less than 3 years of NFL experience, with Dan Moore and James Daniels being your veterans.
Yeah, it's very unideal. And if it works out, it's great for the future. It's really, really good for the future for the Steelers. But the chances that it's guaranteed to work out are slim. And especially Atlanta's defensive line is good. Denver's defensive line is good. You're going to start the season. I mean, it doesn't get any easier against Los Angeles. You have 3 really hard games offensive line wise to start the season. And without Isaac, that's huge. If that's the amount of time he's going to miss, if he's going to miss more, it gets worse. If he's going to miss less, it gets better. But it's not an ideal situation for the Steelers. We'll wait and see. But for right now, that's as big of a loss as they come. I hope it. I like Spencer Anderson. I think he's great. He did bag on this shirt today, which, I would say took a knock in my book, but he was a big fan. I think that he's got the skill to make this work, and I hope it does work out. But if I had to guess, he gets the shot here. This is a good question. Any chance Troy Fautanu goes to guard? I would say no. I don't believe so. I don't think the Steelers are going to want to move guys around too much, especially when they have options on the inside. They still have Spencer Anderson, and they probably feel good enough to give Spencer Anderson an opportunity there. If it doesn't work out, they'll look at other options, Troy Fautanu included. But to start, I would imagine that Spencer Anderson's the guy. Troy Fautanu is gonna stick outside and play offensive tackle whenever he does return. All right. I want to dive into everybody's questions, but first, I just want to give a rundown since everybody's on here, and I appreciate everybody who's on here all the time. This is what I have heard I've seen the lockers, so sometimes that's an indication, sometimes it's not, but from what I have gathered, this is what the Pittsburgh Steelers practice squad is going to look like, and I wanted to give you guys some insights before the whole thing goes live. We'll start off with a banger. A banger, my friend. As good as it gets when it comes to a practice squad signing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Quarterback John Rice Plumlee. I guess quarterback, wide receiver, kick returner, punt returner, whatever you want to do with him, John Rice Plumlee. Fullback Jack Coletto, running back Aaron Shumklin, running back Jonathan Ward, wide receiver Quez Watkins, wide receiver Jeray Jenkins, wide receiver Dez Fitzpatrick, wide receiver Brandon Johnson, offensive lineman Tyreem Doss, offensive lineman Doug Nestor, who played alongside Zach Frazier at West Virginia. Then tight ends Rodney Williams and Matt Sokol, cornerbacks Anthony Averett coming back, which I thought was a bit of a surprise, but I'm glad he's here, and Thomas Graham. And to finish it off, linebacker Marcus Haynes. That's 15 of the 16. I can't figure out the 16th for the life of me. I've been trying all day to come up with this 16th name. Just can't get it. John Rice Plumlee coming back, and I think the other big one here is Anthony Averett returning to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The rest of them we probably could have guessed. How pumped were you when I tossed out the name John Rice Plumlee earlier today?
Yeah, I told you, the Plum Dog Millionaire makes his return. I mean, he might go to the UFL yet, but you still get some really good locker room presence with him. Yes. I'll throw in Rodney Williams there as well. That's great. Yes. Locker room presence. That's a lot of laughs. And also a couple of guys that, specifically Rodney Williams is a really good special teamer. And if injuries do occur, which we know, long NFL season, brutal NFL season, you do have another tight end in Williams that last year almost recovered a punt that was blocked for a touchdown and almost won you some money, because I know you had an anytime touchdown on him that day.
Unbelievable. I forgot about that play, to be honest with you. That one hurts a little bit.
But he stays in the locker room. And then Anthony Averett, you mentioned it. It's interesting. I feel like it's similar to what you said yesterday, whenever they release some of these players early to see if, to allow them to see if there's another fit earlier around the league. I feel like it was hey, we know what you are. We've seen what you could bring to us. You're not going to make our 53 man. Go out there and see if you can make another 53 man. And if you want to come back, open arms, you can be on our practice squad. I think it was a little bit more of that Steelers being Steelers and allowing their players opportunities before roster cut down day on Tuesday.
Yeah, and to get him back, I mean, that's a boost. I thought Anthony Averett played well during the preseason. I was surprised by his cut, and to have him here as an option, I think makes a lot of sense, while getting to keep Darius Rush and obviously Corey Trice. Thomas Graham's huge, because I mean, if it was up to me, I'd be starting Thomas Graham, but I think the Steelers are going to look for a nickel back. From what I've been told, they're going to look for some corner help over the next 24 hours or so. So I would not lock this initial 53-man roster in. I would also not lock this practice squad in, because they're probably looking for different names to add to it. But that's what I got so far. We'll try to figure out that 16th one before the end of the week here. All right, that's all I got on my agenda. Massive news for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Huge day for them. I'm sure there's lots of questions. Toss yours in the chat if you got them. We'll stick around and answer all of them before we head out of here. What do you got for us?
And let's start off with Peter's question. He says, do you think they start McCormick or Anderson if Siumalu is out? You've mentioned that you think it's going to be Anderson. Do you think there's a chance that McCormick gets in early if that doesn't work out?
Yeah, I mean, I think McCormick would be the next guy on the list if Spencer Anderson doesn't work out to replace Isaac Seumalo at guard, but I don't think the leash is going to be super short on Spencer Anderson, and I don't think that Spencer Anderson's going to be real bad. Like I don't have bad hopes for Spencer Anderson. I think he can handle the role, especially if he gets help from Dan Moore, who's played well in the preseason, and Zach Frazier, who's played well all summer long. So I would say Spencer Anderson gets the start. He doesn't have a short leash. McCormick would be next.
Let's go over to Metal Method 99, who says, do you think the Steelers are going to sign a wide receiver before this season starts?
I thought the opportunity was there, but there really weren't names that jumped out to go sign. You know, there weren't anybody that got cut that you said, oh, you have to go get that player. You have to. That makes so much sense. Noah Brown is the only one that I thought, okay, if you were going to make a very small splash, that's your splash. But besides him, there isn't really a name out there that I feel very confident in. Tim Patrick was a good one, and if they wanted to sign him to the practice squad and then elevate him to the active roster once he got accumulated, I thought that made sense. But he's going to Detroit. I understand that signing for Patrick. Noah Brown would be the only guy on my list. I don't know if they're in discussions for him, but I would imagine they're at least testing the waters.
Let's go over to Andy's question next. Says, who is going to be our sleeper to watch for this season?
Oh, that is a great question. That is a great question. We'll go one on offense, one on defense. Sleeper on defense is Deshaun Elliott. I think Deshaun Elliott's going to have a massive year. He's going to be a dude for the Pittsburgh Steelers at that safety position. I very much so anticipate a huge year from Deshaun Elliott and a huge part of that defense. On offense, this is a sleeper. Cordell Patterson might be a sleeper. He kind of strikes me the past couple of weeks as sleeper material. My other one would potentially be Scotty Miller. I think Scotty Miller might have a role in this offense that's bigger than we anticipated. Those would be my names. Deshaun Elliott, I feel real confident in, though.
Let's go to Savion Hamilton, who says, does Kyle Allen deserve a roster spot? Can't he go to the practice squad and get signed if needed? There are definitely other players the Steelers could have used that spot for.
I agree. Not everybody keeps three quarterbacks. The Pittsburgh Steelers chose to keep three quarterbacks. They have the past couple of years. They didn't always keep three quarterbacks. It wasn't always on their agenda. It seems to be lately. I think Kyle Allen's a good quarterback, reliable for a number 3. You're going to keep 4 and John Rice Plumlee when he comes back. I get what you're saying, especially with the new rules that you could always have that third quarterback and he doesn't need to take up a game day roster spot. But at the same time, it's not. Where else were you going to go with that roster spot? That's my question. And I just don't think that they were going to go anywhere very significant that they couldn't have gone, you need a center, cut Ryan McCollum. You need a safety, cut Jalen Elliott. You need a corner, cut Darius Rush or Beanie Bishop. They're just, there wasn't anybody that just missed that you were like, oh man, I couldn't believe they missed. They should have made it over a third quarterback.
Let's go to the next question, which is the Brandon Ayuk news going to start to heat up now?
I have no idea. I have no idea. It is crazy where we are with this. It's gotten very quiet. I would imagine it's too quiet. It's too quiet. The national media is not going to be a big fan of it, and I would guess that somebody says something that blows up into us having to talk about it when essentially it's just something that means nothing. So I would imagine maybe, but I don't know. I don't know.
Let's go over to Raymond's question, who asks, are there any possible guard or interior offensive line free agents or trade possibilities that you could see happening for the Steelers?
I don't know about trades. I'm not positive about trades. I will pull up the free agent guard market real fast just to see what's going on there. If my laptop decides to load, as everybody could tell by the glitch earlier. I don't know what's going on, but we're not having a good time here.
You're still in a preseason mode over there at the new house. It's all right. You still got a couple days
We're
here to
working
get
there.
things right. Yeah.
All right. All right. We got it there. It's coming up. It's coming up.
There you
I would
go.
imagine my thoughts on this, though, just because I will mention some names, but my thoughts on this are pretty simple. Like, Spencer Anderson's going to get the shot. You're not going to not give Spencer Anderson a shot. He's a second-year guy. He's not a rookie. You have developed him into a guy that you hope you could rely on. You kept him as that backup for this reason. If it's massive, super long term, I could see them thinking about it, but you have a high profile rookie and a second year guy that you trust. So I would imagine they don't put too much consideration into an outside guy. That being said, Mark Gronkowski is that's the top guy. If you're going to go get somebody, that's who you go get. But Matt Filer's still out there. Maybe if you're feeling like real old, bring him back. Who cares? Cool. But besides that, there really aren't much names. I mean, Trey Turner's still on the market, and that's how you know we're good. So I would guess Spencer Anderson's my way to go, their way to go, and then Mason McCormick gets a shot before they start doing anything else.
Biggie wants to know, if the Steelers don't really use a fullback, why would they bring Coletto back on the practice squad?
They want to use a fullback. He just wasn't worth a roster spot. They typically have a fullback on the practice squad just in case. It helps with a lot of things. You know, the practice squad guys 75% of the time are there to emulate other players from other teams. So you go up against teams that have a fullback. Jack Coletto plays a pretty big role there. It's the same reason like you're bringing back a John Rice Plumlee, because at some point you're just going to have him imitate Lamar Jackson or Deshaun Watson or whoever, those mobile quarterbacks. It's not always we want this guy to come up and play for us. A lot of times it's this guy could play this person really well when we need a look on that offense.
Vibing with the Dogs wants to know, what do the Steelers do at backup center, or do they just stick with a guy like Ryan McCullum?
I think Ryan McCullum, just like Jalen Elliott, is a name that I wouldn't really anticipate being here long term. But I mean, he's been here a couple of years now. Maybe the Steelers just feel confident in what he could bring and the backup center that he can be. I don't know. I was shocked by that one. That one was one of the biggest shocks for me in that 53-man roster. Didn't see it coming. I think Will Clapp, excuse me. I think Ricky Stromberg, like, if they don't get signed in the next 24 hours to a team that is going to toss them a lot of money, the Steelers should make some phone calls and see if they could get them for cheap to come in here with an opportunity to be a backup. And I think both of those guys are young and have potential and fit the Steelers offense. So I would like to see them make a move there.
Buck and Roll says, do you think if both running backs are doing great and a need for a wide receiver or defensive back continues to emerge, could a Harris trade be in a chance to trade him or let him walk to get a need for somebody else who goes down?
No. Nope. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't think by any means, and if I'm wrong, if week 8 rolls around and they do this, feel free to clip this and put it all over Colt Takes and, tell me I'm an idiot. I'm all here for it. But I think there's a 0% shot that the Pittsburgh Steelers trade Najee Harris this season. They just want to win. And if both of their running backs are doing great, they're very excited that they have 2 running backs doing great. They're one injury away from then not having a running back at all. And they would like to not be in that situation. So I think that a Super Bowl is on their mind. And because of that, they're just not going to trade guys that probably hold the most value.
Speaking of running backs, we got a question here that says, is Jaylen Warren still feeling up to week 1 last you talked to him?
Yeah, talked to him today, actually, and he said that he's good to go for week 1. He feels good about week 1. He's back at practice. I would imagine he's good. He's fine. He's ready to go. Doesn't seem bad at all. He seemed like a guy that looked ready to play.
Like I said, and like Noah said, throw your questions in if you still have them. Lifted Ones wants to know, what is our favorite wing flavor? For him, lemon pepper with a side of ranch.
Yeah, I'd go mild, just a classic buffalo with a lot of blue cheese. And if any of my boys out there are ranch guys and they're watching this, you're wrong. Nick, you ranch guy?
I'm not a ranch guy for anything.
Thank God. You got me real
anything.
nervous with that look there. I got very nervous that you were a ranch guy. No, I'm a classic buffalo with some blue cheese. Lots of blue cheese.
Yeah, I was a little surprised you went with the mild, not a like super hot sauce type of guy.
No.
Ugh.
I'm just learning to eat heat, to be honest. I've never been a heat guy. But I realize I'm 28. It's time to grow up a little bit. So I'm slowly in there. Like when we go for Thai food, I'm now like, I'll take a 2 in the heat instead of a 0. So we're getting there.
We got a couple people in the chat that are throwing in that Terrace Marshall is headed to the San Francisco 49ers. As Vibing with the Dog says, does that mean Brandon Ayuk is coming to the Steelers?
I don't believe that's what it's for. And maybe it is. Maybe I don't know. I'm just guessing. But I don't think Ricky Pearsall is a name that is going to play to start the season. So I think that's to replace him or at least to boost everybody up their depth chart so that they could replace him. And then Brandon Ayuk, we'll see what happens. I will say Deebo Samuel on NFL Network the other day didn't give as bold of an answer when asked if Brandon Ayuk was coming back. So take that how you will.
Let's go to Marlon's question next. He says, will Scotty Miller or Calvin Austin be the slot when the season opens up in a week and a half?
Yeah, Calvin Austin will start in the slot, and then Scotty Miller will be the backup. But I would guess that they both get playing time and plenty of it. But Calvin's going to be the guy. They're going to give him the first opportunity. I think he's earned it. And Scotty's going to come in here and be the backup and a reliable set of hands. And they'll figure out the mix from there.
Alexander wants to know, off topic again, but says favorite breakfast spot in Pittsburgh. People like our recommendations from what I've gathered.
I appreciate this, guys, because I don't know if I have great food taste, but I like to imagine that I do. Mine is Nancy's in Wilkinsburg. Small little spot, dude. You take your mom in there, she's gonna be grossed out. She's gonna be like, "There's holes in the ceiling, and this place is dirty." Food is phenomenal. Their sausage gravy and biscuits will rock your socks, dude. Their chicken and waffles, would eat them every day if I could. So shout out Nancy's, 100% right on Wilkinsburg.
Yeah, I'll give a little bit of free cred for Kitchen on Penn, which is not in Pittsburgh. Yeah. It's a little further out, but very good food and very good breakfast sandwiches.
Yeah, the kitchen. I was actually at the kitchen not too long ago during training camp. I made a stop. So yeah, the kitchen's fire.
Let's go over to Sebastian, who has another non-football question. Then we'll get back into football. I promise. Says, do you like Fortnite, Noah?
I haven't played Fortnite in years. I just haven't been I haven't been a Fortnite guy in a while, but I was back in the day when it was a rager. I was in college still, so I was Fortniting it all the time. I was definitely those 2-3 in the morning, we're playing Fortnite still type of guy.
Let's go over to Biggie's question as we jump back into football. It says, how many sacks will the Steelers get against Atlanta, in your opinion?
I'd guess multiple, 3 or 4, depending. I don't know how good Atlanta's offense is going to look yet. I think it's still a guess, but I would guess 3 or 4. TJ's going to get 1 at least. Alex Highsmith's probably going to get 1. I would guess somebody else gets 1. So I would say minimum of 3. TJ gets in there twice, maybe 4. That would be my guess. 3 or 4, maybe more.
You said TJ gets in there twice. That also answers Adam's question, who said over under 1.5 sacks. If you had to put it on the line, would you go over under 1.5 for that game?
Man, dude, I don't know. I still actually somebody hit me up on, and I appreciate you. I'm about to hit you back. Actually, somebody hit me up on Instagram yesterday that I caught, and they asked what sports book I use, and I just didn't feel right sending back the sports book because I don't want anybody to take my gambling advice because I'm not good at it. I'm just not good at it. If it was me, I'd go over. It's week 1. TJ's hot. He's excited. The defense is going to be electric, and he's pretty pissed off about losing Defensive Player of the Year. So if it was me, I'd take the over. But again, don't say it was my fault if you do and you lose.
Bet responsibly, as always. So that's what we have to throw in at the end of every single one of those things. That way, you a little bit of liability coverage. Luke wants to know, with DK's history with Russ making sense, why not pursue him over Brandon Ayuk?
I just don't think he's available. Just the way I look at it is I don't think he's on the market right now. So the way Ayuk is, and that's like you can name 10 core wide receivers that probably make as much sense, if not more, than Brandon Ayuk, but you can only go after the ones that you can get your hands on, and I don't think DK Metcalf is on the market.
Kalen wants to know, is Cordero Patterson going to see more wide receiver time or more running back time this season?
Running back. Definitely running back. I would imagine they do a lot of 2 running back sets, but running back would be my answer. I still think he's going to play some wide receiver, but I would guess he's going to work. He's going to work as a running back 90% of the time.
Still Cold wants to know, any update on Peyton Wilson, who obviously had some concussion issues earlier in the preseason?
He's good. He's back in practice. Everything is looking fine. I would guess he's good to go by week 1. From what I've been told, the only reason he didn't play in the last preseason game is just for precautionary reasons. So I would guess he's good to go.
Marlon wants to know, with all of these injuries, will Tomlin rethink the physicality that he uses this close to the season?
No. You're never going to get, you could have an opinion and I could have an opinion and Nick could have an opinion about whether or not they should, but never. He'll never do it, man. He loves how physical his practices are, and I don't think that'll ever change.
Leandrew 25 wants to know if you think the Steelers would go after Kadarius Toney if the Brandon Ayuk discussions fall through.
I hope not. I hope not. I really, really hope not. But that's on them. Maybe. I got a hard time believing Kadarius Toney's going to end up on a 53-man roster this year. Maybe a practice squad just for a team to take a shot on him. But I think there will be a couple other names before they go Kadarius Toney.
Vibing with the Dogs wants to know, he's going to his first Steelers game in 20 years. Where is the best spot to sit?
Shout out. I hope you enjoy it. The 50-yard line, obviously. I'm a fan over by the tunnel where they come out. I think that's pretty cool. Those would be my spots. But Heinz Field's a good one, man. There's not many places to sit where, you're going to miss out. Like, you can sit up in the nosebleeds. You're still going to get a clear view of everything. So I don't think there's a bad seat in the house. Mine by the tunnel's awesome. And then the 50-yard line, anywhere you could get, definitely. My better advice would be to come before it's freezing cold. That would be my best advice.
Hefe Boss wants to know, will the Steelers have 11+ wins this season?
I've been saying no since the jump. Nick's been saying yes since the jump. So you got to ask him. I'm a 10-win guy. Think they could have more, but I'm sticking with my 10 and I feel confident in it.
I've been at 11. You make it sound like I was like, 13, 12. No, I've been at 11 steady since the schedule came out. Right now, I'm sticking on it, but with these offensive line injuries, I want to see how they progress. I want to see the news on Siamalu. That might change the ceiling that I have for the Steelers this year. But I do think that it's a winning season, and I do think this is a team that's going to contend for a playoff spot. Speaking of that, me 24/7 says, what are the chances that this team doesn't make the playoffs this year?
The AFC would have to be loaded, so I would say slim to none. Like, the Steelers are a winning team. I think people are either freaking out about the preseason or like freaking out about Russell Wilson, or they hate Mike Tomlin or whatever it is. Just logically, it's very rare for the Steelers not to make the playoffs. So I don't view them as a team that's going to miss it this year. I always anticipate that this season goes until January and a little bit into January, if not February. And that's where I think everybody else should stand too.
Ian Clement wants to know, where does Cole Holcomb fit when he does come back?
I don't know if he'll come back. I think that's the biggest part here is I don't know if he's going to come back. I hope he does. I hope his recovery is going well and he's back on the field this season, but I don't know if he's going to be. When he does come back, he's the fourth guy. He's right back in there with Patrick Queen, Landon Roberts, Peyton Wilson, and then it's Cole Holcomb. And that's a dominant 4. So if he does, that's where he mixes in, but I don't think he's going to come back this season.
Let's go over to Tude Sonic. Says, can Darnell Washington develop into a tight end like former Steeler Eric Green? He was a monster. You see practice. What's your take?
I like that. Eric Green's a good one. Yeah, I think so. I think he's got upside. I think Darnell is going to break out a little bit this year. A lot of it has to do with how much the offense flows, and I wouldn't expect Darnell Washington to be a 5-6 catch guy per game, but I could see him with a couple of touchdowns, a couple 100 yards receiving, and really making a name for himself. It's the upside's there, the potential's there. He's taking steps forward. I think it's more of the whole offense as a whole. How can they flow will depend on how good he is this season.
Let's go over to Kaleo, who wants any update possible on Roman Wilson's injury.
I don't think there really is one. He's still kind of waiting it out, waiting for week 1. He's doing some stuff on the sideline, but he's not back at practice fully. So it's just still a wait and see situation.
Let's go over to Edwards next. He says, would you use Justin in the red zone and short yardage situations?
Yep, I've been saying this all summer. And Nick, you've probably heard me say this 40 times, and I'll say it 40 more. There are 2 plays that I'm very confident the defenses cannot stop for the Pittsburgh Steelers most of the time. And that is the read option near the goal line, which I understand didn't work against Buffalo. It was a great play by Buffalo. And anything with a fullback in Arthur Smith's offense, which I would guess is Michael Pruitt this year. So yeah, I would use Justin Fields in the red zone, but I'd also use him at like the 50-yard line. Like, people got to remember this dude broke off like a dozen 80-yard runs 2 seasons ago. So he could do it all. I would keep him. I would keep him out there really whenever you think that play is needed. That's when I'm putting Justin Fields out there.
Let's go to Alexander's question next. He says, if the Steelers do end up trading for Brandon Ayuk, do you think the trade value has gone down in the last couple of weeks?
Yes. Yes. Roster cuts definitely pushed it down. I think teams are going to start filling up. I think the Steelers are moving on a little bit, and the 49ers are either going to have to start getting needy and just say, hey, screw it, it's time to move on, or, it just depends on how stubborn they are. But they are being very stubborn. So I would guess that this is still a wait and see situation. I don't know. Like, the price is probably exactly where it was, which wasn't as high as everybody hoped it was. Like, it's not a first round pick. It's probably second. The longer this goes, the closer this gets to week 1, the more I could see that second pick getting a little bit worse.
Going over to Edward White, who says, is Michael Thomas an option for the Steelers at this point?
Maybe, but I still think probably not. They talked to him earlier in the offseason, but Michael Thomas doesn't move the needle. I was, in my head, they were waiting for somebody who could move the needle, and they didn't get that option. So they're going to try other options first, maybe Michael Thomas. But the fact that you're calling about Tim Patrick and John Mechie mean that, you're still not there yet if you're the Steelers.
Speaking of those two, William wants to know, best choice between John Mechie and Noah Brown.
John Mechie, easy. I mean, in Pittsburgh's offense, it's Noah Brown, but John Mechie's the better wide receiver. He's got more upside. To be honest, though, if I'm calling Houston, and this isn't a popular answer, I'm asking for Robert Woods. Robert Woods is my call. He is my guy. He is my number 2. I feel great about it. He is as reliable as they come as a wide receiver. He is as good as they come as a pass blocker. If it was me, I'm going Robert Woods. But John Mechie's my choice between those 2.
Let's go over to Kalen, who wants to know, is Nick Herbig going to win the MVP this season? What are your thoughts on Nick Herbig's year 2?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to win MVP. I think that would be awesome. But I do think he's going to have a phenomenal year. Like, he's going to play so much this season and have so many opportunities that he's going to take over. He's not going to be a starter by the end of the season, but teams will not be able to game plan against him because they have to game plan against everybody else. He's going to have so many opportunities to make noise. TJ is going to end up being the team MVP, but Nick Herbig is going to have a great year.
Let's go over to Zambezi, who says, with Arthur Smith's offense, is it going to look that much different in the regular season that it already has? The O-line was hard to watch in preseason. It feels like you're going to see the same offense as last year.
Yeah, no. Arthur Smith showed about 1% of his offense from what it will be during the regular season. That's just what you do. When you're Matt Canada, you show all of your offense. When you're a bad offensive coordinator, you show all of your offense because you don't have more offense. When you're Arthur Smith, you are very open about, we're just not really doing a lot right now, and we're not going to do a lot right now. So The offensive line was terrible, and they need to get better. That's a concern, certainly. But the offensive coordinator and the game plan, I expect that to open up a lot.
Speaking of the game plan, Brian Wyatt wants to know, granted the offensive line's performance and Russell's reduced mobility, do you think the deep ball is still even an option right now, or will this team look to make more short passes and runs?
It's going to be a short pass offense. It's going to be certainly a short pass offense, but you have guys like George Pickens. You have guys like Van Jefferson who are deep ball guys, and the Steelers are going to look to utilize their speed and their athleticism on the outside, and Russell Wilson loves the deep ball. So I would imagine that that's still very much so part of this offense. That being said, it will be much more West Coast than it is deep. They'll scatter it out and make it work. But it's going to be a lot of short passes for sure.
Paul wants to know, should the Steelers pick up Paris Campbell? He was just released yesterday as part of cutdowns.
Oh, Wilson. You back?
You there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Paris Campbell is the question from Paul.
Yeah, Paris Campbell just got signed to Philadelphia's practice squad. I liked him more than Terrace Marshall. I liked him more than Donovan Peoples-Jones. The only person I didn't like him more than was Miles Boykin and Noah Brown. And I still think they should call Miles Boykin. Not as a wide receiver, as a special teamer. But Paris Campbell, I'm surprised that nobody signed Paris Campbell. Like, I think he's got upside. I think he's young and still looks good. So I was very surprised by that one.
Let's go over to Luke Cage, who says, Noah and Nick, now that we know Russell is quarterback one, how many touchdowns do you think he has this season?
Oh, 25 plus. 25 plus. You got a different number on that? Because I'm feeling good with 25 plus.
My initial thought was going to go 20 plus.
Yeah, I feel like that's
a little bit more
like
reserved.
Where you want to be. Yeah. I agree. I think you're going to have 10 to 15 rushing touchdowns this season, and then the rest will be passing touchdowns. I still think George Pickens has 1,200 yards, but doesn't mean that he's going to score 10 touchdowns.
Let's go over to Eternal Endurance Resiliency Service, who says, are you going to Atlanta? Where are we having beers and talking Artie Stash Saturday night?
I would love to. I am actually not going to Atlanta. I'm going to Denver. I typically only travel super long for one game a year. I know it's bad of me, but that's just what, that's what the company pays for. So I get to go one. I'm going to Denver. Revenge game. I got buddies out in Denver. That was the one I picked. Atlanta would have been cool. I appreciate that. If I change my mind, if that does happen, I have until Friday morning, and you can ask my wife. I've been contemplating it for like a week now. If it does change, I'll keep you posted, because you got to let me know, where are we getting beers, my friend? Where are we getting beers?
Let's go over to Juan, who asks, there aren't great tight end receiving options behind Pat Freiermuth. What do you think the plan is if he ends up going down this season?
Darnell Washington and then Michael Pruitt and Connor Hayward. They have options. I don't think I agree with that. I think that their tight end options behind Pat Freiermuth are pretty good. I like Darnell Washington. I think Michael Pruitt's a stud. He is the sleeper on this offense. People will know his name by the end of the season. I promise you that. But I think they have decent options. And then Connor Hayward is not athletic. Connor Hayward is not big. He might have the best hands on the football field, including George Pickens. It is wild how good his hands are. So I feel good about their tight end room. I don't think they'd go anywhere.
Let's go over to Stephen A., who has a week one prediction. Says for week one, JPJ is going to lock down Drake London. And then he has a question here. Who's going to cover Pitts then?
Deshaun Elliott and is going to be the guy covering Pitts. That's, he'll be that'll be his job. Mink will play center field. The safety opposite of him, whether that's KZ or Elliott, will cover the tight ends, but it's going to be Deshaun Elliott. That's why he brought him in, man. He's physical. He knows how to match up with these guys. He does it well. And he looks just as scary as he will on the football field, off the football field. So he's going to be the guy.
Let's go over to Leandrew, who says, predict a final score for Atlanta in week one. I'll step in here. I know we typically do it the Friday before the game. Is that still the plan for this year?
That is still the plan for this year. We will make our predictions the Friday before the game. So this will change. Okay, this will change. I'm going to go Steelers win right now. And to be honest with you, I'm contemplating, not a Steelers win. So it's
close.
It's close. It's close. Atlanta just looks really good. Like super. It's crazy how we're not talking about how good Atlanta is on paper. I would go Steelers 24. No, Steelers 24, Falcons 21. I feel good about that one. That puts you right where you want to be if you're Pittsburgh.
Let's go over to Ian Clement, who says, are there any concerns still about Russ and his lack of throwing towards the middle of the field? Feel like most of his passes during preseason were still all on the outside.
No, I'm not. I mean, he had five plays or something in the second preseason game. No, I'm not concerned about it. If we get to the regular season, we could judge some things differently. But for right now, no, I carry no concern. Like you're going to get that. Everybody's going to get that about me over the next 2 weeks. Is I carry no concern with me into the regular season. None. The preseason means nothing. What happens in week 1, we could start to judge, but everything before that is just, you're doing limited things in limited time. You have no idea what's going to happen. So no, I have no concerns.
Alexander says it probably makes sense for the Steelers to trade Alex Highsmith next season to clear up cap space if Nick Herbig looks as good as we think he does this season. Do you think that could be in the cards for the Steelers next year?
I think maybe, but I don't know if I agree that makes the best sense because you want 3 guys. If you could utilize all 3 guys, you should utilize all 3 guys. And Alex Highsmith's a monster. Like you're not trading Alex Highsmith because he's not good or not living up to the potential. Like Alex Highsmith is a monster of an outside linebacker, probably top 10 outside linebacker in the NFL. He's very, very good. So I would look at him and say, why not have 3 of them? That's how the Steelers win football games, is through their pass rushers. You want as many good ones as you could get. And if you could find a way to utilize a 3 outside linebacker set most of the time somehow, it works out even better. So I see where you're coming from. I think financially that's a possibility. I wouldn't do it personally.
Let's go over to William's question, who says, do you think that West Coast looking offense that you mentioned earlier would be a shakeup in the AFC North and give the Steelers a little bit of an edge?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think the Steelers defense gives them an edge this season. I do. But I also think their running game stacks up against Baltimore's, which is huge. Cleveland not having Nick Chubb at the beginning of the season makes them very iffy, especially with, you don't know if Deshaun Watson's ever going to be good again or not. Cincinnati worries me, but I just think the Steelers overall collectively have done more than anybody else this offseason. And, don't get me wrong, Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow could win you Super Bowls, and that's a game changer. But the rest of the team on paper, the Pittsburgh Steelers have done more than everybody, and I think that gives them the edge when it comes to these guys. It's just they put the work in to beat them, and that's what they're going to do.
Speaking of that defense, Luke Cage wants to know, where do you see the defense ranking this season? Says that they're stacked pretty good.
Yeah, top 3. I give the Steelers top 3 chances at 1. I'd be stunned if they're outside the top 5. Injuries would have to happen. I would go top 3 easy.
Let's go to Luke, who says, if Isaac Seumalo is down for a long period of time, how do you think the offensive line looks?
I mean, they didn't look great in the preseason, so I don't know. I have faith in Spencer Anderson. I want to see what he could do in the regular season before I judge anything. I don't think it looks great. You're very banged up. This is not the best place to be if you're the Steelers, but it happens all the time. Seasons are about overcoming this kind of stuff. That's where you win. So I'm interested to see what they look like in week 1. I have faith in Spencer Anderson. I'll say that.
Let's finish it off with Ian Clement, who says, what is your number 1 Steeler for fantasy football this season?
Oh, that's a tough one. George Pickens or Najee Harris got to lead it, right? Like they got to be the ones that are as high up as they get. But who would be the question? I think it depends on where you draft. Like I wouldn't draft the Steeler in my first 2 rounds. First round, I might go one of these guys second round, like middle of the second round. Mm-hmm. I'm leaning George, but I think Najee could just be a vulture in the end zone and have 1,000 yards, and that's not going to be great. So I would say those 2 are very neck and neck. Mm-hmm. Depending on whether or not you could get a different wide receiver, I'd go Najee, but that's just because running backs are limited, and having a real impactful running back is it goes a long way in fantasy football.
That's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are going to head out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, please find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.